Hi, this is Dr. Judy with JJ White Ministries, and this is my husband, Elder Joe, and we are here to continue with part two of our story. It's never too late to find true love. But before we dive in, we want to apologize for technical difficulty with part one. We know that it cut off at a certain point that you could not hear us speaking. And so we're going to give you the rest of it in this video. And we pray that you're blessed and that something that is said would resonate with you and would also help you and give you direction in your own journey.
Awesome, love. Yes, the last time we had this conversation, we were talking about meeting her family for the first time. And because it was the pandemic, obviously you guys know we couldn't meet in person.
Right.
So she thought it was a good idea to for us to do a Zoom call where I get to meet her family. And it was really, really nice. At first I was extremely nervous because I didn't know her family that well, and to get all of them on Zoom, it was I didn't honestly, I was going into it blindly. But after the process started and we all introduce ourselves, I get to know who they are, and they get to know me. Then I think the icebreaker kind of it lends itself to be a smoother transition.
Yes.
So we had fun during that process. They asked a lot of questions. They wanted to know, my profession. They want to know my journey. They want to know my religious belief, and they just want to ask some very, very good but tough questions. And I think for them, they really wanted to get to know the person who their sister is marrying. And one of the reasons why, because they understood the journey that she took to get where she is. And we say it over and over, 17 years. They wanted to make sure that she didn't wait 17 years to get into something that's going to be pretty much a mess. They wanted to make sure that she was going to, the relationship that she's getting into, at least if they had something to do with it,
Yes.
they did their part to make sure that they understand who she was going to get involved with.
And I think you did quite well meeting my family on Zoom. And I know that after that it got easier as you began to meet each of them in person once the pandemic started to lift.
Yeah.
And as we said before, that it's so important, to get to know each other's family, because when you marry an individual, you're not just marrying that person, you are indeed marrying their family, whether
That's
you
true,
like
yeah.
to think of it that way or not.
Yeah.
And so it's very important to start your journey out when you know that this is going to be the person you want to spend the rest of your life with.
Yeah.
Make sure that you meet the family. Make sure that you determine within yourself that you're going to get to know the family and that you're going to embrace your spouse-to-be's family just as if they were your very own.
I agree, love.
Yes.
And one thing I took from that, the conversation that we had on Zoom, it's the accountability portion of it.
Yes.
It's so important when you're dating to have accountability people in your life.
True.
And I think for my wife, she had her family, she had a sister, she had her brothers and stuff that's accountable in her life. So she, I think it's so important to have somebody that's going to be accountable. And I think that's what I got from that, the accountability, and just to make sure that they're holding not only me accountable, but they're holding her accountable as well.
Yeah.
And I get an opportunity to ask questions. I ask, how she grew up, what was she like growing up as a teenager, young adult, and just get to know the person, and not from her lens, but from her siblings' lens. And that was a lot of information.
Yes. But again, that helped us to really begin to fuse our lives together, even before we had the ceremony, the marriage, because these are the things you want to do up front. You don't want to wait until you're in the marriage to now be meeting their family and learning about that person, because what if you learn something that you're not happy with, or But our journey, we're so grateful for it because after that, we continued to get to know each other. As we said before, we communicated a lot by phone because of the pandemic. And we just, I felt that after a while, we talked as if we knew each other for years.
For a long time.
And we talked about any and everything.
Yeah, and we had, during that process, let me say something real quick though. When you're dating, the dating period is a data collection.
Yes.
And too often we date and we are not taking data, we are not getting the necessary information. And sometimes the red flags or the good things are there, but you're missing them because we are not taking inventory and taking data.
True.
So I felt that during that process, we both were taking inventory. We both were taking data. We wanted to make sure that she know who I am. I know who she is. My likes, my dislike, financially, we talked a lot about finance, talked a lot about our finances stability, and some of it was difficult, to talk about, but we had a safe space, love,
Yes.
to really discuss that, and we talked about a safe place so that we could discuss those kind of tough topics, even during the dating stage.
And so, we don't want to make it sound that like our journey was, peaches and cream all the way, because there were times, such as when we did get to meet up, we had only gone out in person to have dinner twice. And as I said, I believe in the previous video, both times I left the dinner in tears because of my own insecurities and my own lack of confidence, perhaps, and my own being intimidated by who this great man was and is. But thank God that I was able to work through that. And, I have to say, ladies, sometimes you don't know what your insecurities are, and you don't know what your struggles are until someone comes into your life that has strength in the areas where you are weak, and then it shows you up even more.
It highlights
yes,
it.
It highlights it. And so I had the purpose in my heart, and that was what I liked about being able to communicate by phone. Not thankful for the pandemic by any means.
No, not at
but
all.
It gave me the opportunity to communicate with him by phone, and in doing so, I was able to begin to pray for myself and put myself before God, and those things that showed up that I already saw that I needed really desperately to get beyond, if this man was going to be my husband, and if I was going to be confident enough to enter another marriage relationship. And so I was able to do that. And as we moved along, again, I never told him that I was in love with him. I never told him that I was falling in love with him at 5 months. I kept that to myself. And hey, let's be real. Let me be transparent. A part of it was a protective mechanism for me. Why bare my soul? Why tell him that I'm falling in love with him when I hadn't heard him say it and didn't know if he had gotten to that point? And besides that, we had agreed that it was only going to be a platonic friendship because of his journey that he was going through. So whatever I was feeling emotionally, whatever was developing in my heart, I knew that I had to keep it there. And I conveyed it to God. God knew what I was feeling, and I continually said to God, Lord, if he is falling in love with me, if he is as interested in me as I am in him beyond a friendship, Lord, you're going to have to let it come to the surface. You're going to have to let him be the one to speak up on it. And so I held it, and I didn't chase him down. Times when I didn't hear from him, I didn't question him, I didn't ask his whereabouts or anything like that, because after all, I didn't know him.
Yep, that's true. And I agree with that, because too often, and I'm going to be real, we get thirsty.
Yeah.
And our thirstiness allow us to do things and say things that turn the other person off. So I think it was important for both of us to understand the relationship, what it is, what it's all about, and just be honest and be transparent of where we are. And again, for me, I was very, very transparent and upfront with her from day one.
Yes.
I made it very clear where I am, what I'm doing, the process in which I'm taking. And then for me, school is part of that. I was really deep into my master's program. So, and that in itself, anyone who have gone through that know how difficult it is, you know, the studying, the sleepless nights, the writing, the presentations that you have to do each and every, you know, class that you have presentation, and, you know, and leadership conferences, and just different stuff that I had to do that took up a lot of my time. And I just didn't want to lead her on to tell her, give her a false sense of security when I knew deep down that I just have a lot of stuff that I needed to work out.
Yes. And you know what? I'm glad you said that, because as I think back on our journey, I can remember being very glad that he was so transparent up front, and that he let me know everything that was going on in his life and his own journey that he was going through, because it let me know that he respected me enough and he thought enough of me not to want to lead me on. And so that also helped me to contain my emotions.
That is true, love, because I
Yes.
remember saying to you, I don't know if you remember, love, I said to you one time, one thing I don't want to happen in this relationship, I would never ever want to break your heart.
Yes.
Your heart is so important to me that I wouldn't want to break your heart for whatever reason. So I really wanted to be transparent and make sure that, you know, whatever I'm saying to her,
Yes.
that it's honest,
Yes.
it's integrity, the integrity behind it, and just to be blunt, to tell her what it is. And,
Yes.
and I think she respected. I think you respected that, love.
Yes, I sure did, because again, it let me know even more about his character. If this man doesn't want to break my heart, doesn't want to lead me on, want to be so honest and upfront with me, then I know that if God moved us beyond that point and allowed us to become husband and wife, that his character would remain the same, because it wasn't a put on. So I knew that I could find safety and protection in this man even before we got to that point.
Yeah, and it's important because, again, these are the things that you're looking for. Ladies, men, these are the things that you're looking for in a relationship. You
Yes.
want to make sure that that person, where does their integrity lies? You know, who are they showing up as? Are they up and down? Are they all over the place? Are they scattered, or are they consistent? And consistency is key in anything that you do. And I think for us, we were both consistent.
Yes.
You know, the relationship was consistent. We talked about any and everything. We communicated our feelings, our
Yes.
thoughts, and how we were feeling. And it's funny because we laugh now that we got married, because the things that I was sharing and the questions that I was asking her, it was like, I want to marry her.
It was during the friendship stage, and I was a little confused at some point, because I'm like, this man is asking me questions that you would only ask someone that you're interested in marrying. So on the one hand, I knew that we were just platonic friends, no strings attached, as we said many, many times. But then on the other hand, these questions were coming in rapid fire, I might add. And I was like, where is this coming from? But yet and still, I didn't take it beyond what it was intended to be. I engaged in conversation.
questions,
I
yeah.
answered the question to the best of my ability, and I tried to just let it go. I didn't make more of it than what it was.
I know. And then after the time gone on, what was it, 2 years, love?
Yes.
After the time gone on and stuff, I started to feel something for her. But y'all, I still was like, you know what? I'm not saying anything. I feel something, but I'm not saying anything. I'm just going to continue my path. I'm going to continue my path. All along, not knowing that she had already fallen in love
yeah.
5 months
Yes.
into
5
the-
months into
into
just
the-
the friendship.
into the friendship
Never mind
stage.
2 years later.
So I was excited because I felt something, but I continued to do what I had to do, and I continued to say, Lord, and I'm praying that, Lord, just show me. I just want you to show me. I just want you to tell me. I just want you to be very clear to me,
Yeah.
because I don't want to make a mistake.
Right.
Lord, I just want to do this right. This has to be right, and I'm leaning on you, Lord. So I kept praying and I kept praying and I kept praying.
Yes.
Until one day, let me rewind that. January 2000 when I did the wedding, Lord.
2020.
2020, a gentleman that I mentored, I'm not going to call his name, but he know who he is. I mentored him for many, many years, for almost, oh my goodness, for almost 15 plus years I mentored him. And he got engaged and wanted to get married, and he called me and he says, I know you're in college, that you're studying, ministry, and I was talking to my fiance, and we want you to marry. I want you to marry us.
Yes.
I'm like, wow. So I did all the process. I had already got my certification as a pastor,
Yes.
and all my credentials, and I had already filed all the paperwork, downtown to be licensed in the U.S.
Yes.
to be a licensed pastor, to conduct weddings,
Exactly.
and funerals and that
Yes.
stuff. So I was already qualified. So when he asked me, I had already had everything in plan. So I did the wedding January 1st,
Yes.
2020. January 1st, 2020, in the height of the pandemic. And they were going to have a big wedding, huge wedding, but because of the pandemic, the place that they were going to do the wedding had called, the hotel called at the last moment and says, the cases are getting higher and they cannot, they don't want to risk it to have such a large wedding. So they decided to just do a family atmosphere. So they rented a hotel, so I went there. The night prior to the wedding, the Lord spoke to me and waked me up in the middle, and He says, every divorce that you have gone through, whether you or your family, it ends now. That generational curse of divorce has been broken.
Wow.
And right there, the Lord says, I want you to take this relationship to the next level. And I'm like, Lord, that's really you? And I'm like, I've been praying and asking the Lord to speak to me. But it's ironic that the Lord spoke to me that day when I'm going to preside over a wedding.
I know.
It was
Wow.
it was so interesting, and it was so, I knew it had to be the Lord, because I was excited to do the wedding for this gentleman that, like I said, I've been mentoring for quite a while. So I was excited, but the Lord used that time to tell me, don't worry.
Wow.
That curse of divorce that hovers over you,
Wow.
it canceled. No more.
That reminds me of, not to get spiritual now, but it reminds me of when the Lord said to the children of Israel, the enemies that you see this day, you will never see them again.
Wow.
I remember when you called me and shared what the Lord had said to you.
Yeah.
And you even went as far as to say the same thing applies for your family. Now, here he was sharing a word that God gave him for himself and his bloodline.
My lineage, yeah.
His lineage. And then he imparted that same word onto me, not with us still being as far as we knew it in the friendship stage.
Yeah. Yeah. Because oftentimes God give you a word. He give you a word not only for you, but any person who is connected to you.
True.
So at the same time, I knew that the word that the Lord gave me was the word for her, because I started falling, and the Lord said, take it to the next level. So I called her. When did I call her?
Months later.
Months.
So meant months. It was December 29th, 2020 that you called me. I got a phone call that night, and he said that he wanted to take things to the next level. And the next level meant we were destined for marriage. We were destined for engagement. We were destined for marriage, and we were going to officially enter the dating game. And man, I was on the mountaintop. And because I already knew where I stood, I knew that I had fallen in love with him. But you know what? But I respected his journey, and I was glad that he came to the point that he knew he wanted me. I didn't twist his arm. I didn't, try to bend over backwards to please him, to make him like me or make him love me or anything like that. I didn't run him down. Ladies, you don't have to do all that. Pray. That was my way, and that was my safety net. I committed everything to prayer, and God brought him to the point to see my heart, because as you talked about in a different video that we did, how men generally look at the outward appearance before they get to the heart. But through our journey, the Lord allowed him to get to see my heart. That 2-year journey. By the time we got married, it was 2.5 years of being friends, probably just about 6 months of being dating and engaged. So it was a whole 2.5 year process before our wedding day.
Yeah, but the good thing about it, when the Lord spoke to me and told me that I need to take it to the next level, like I said, it was a year before the wedding, right?
Yes, it was that December.
So
yes,
it was a year before the wedding that I presided over.